Yeah, what's up, guys? I just did another debate with this crazy lady, man. She's definitely one of those types of people that end up unaliving their children because God told me to. Like, you definitely need to put her on some type of watch list or something, man. Check this out.
Can I ever age for TikTok?
22.
Okay, did you want to respond to the prompt?
Yes. So I think you should leave Christianity because it says many things that are proven to be false, and they're obviously God's supposed to be perfectly moral, yet He constantly gives and endorses and commands all these laws that are we obviously know are absolutely horrendous. So that goes against His perfectly moral nature, and contradictions cannot exist. Therefore, God does not exist.
Okay, it doesn't sound like what you're describing is a true contradiction where like something is on and off at the same time. But yeah, where do you get your standard of moral from outside of God? Because if you ask me, there's no standard of moral outside of God. It's just like whatever you think, like subjectively.
Yeah, it's subjective. Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's all subjective, you don't have like the objective authority to say that God is immoral. If it's all just based off opinion, because if it's subjective, I could just say, well, I think everything he did was moral in the Bible and the commandments because it's all subjective.
Okay, well, let's go through that. You think morals are objective?
Yeah, I think that it's objective specifically to God. Outside of God, I don't think that they could be like objective.
So let's get on this definition that you're using to make sure that we're both talking about the same thing. So what definition are you using of objective? Is it like something that is good forever and always, like no matter who's doing it and all that?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would define it as like the concrete standard that is true no matter what. And then subjective is it depends on who you ask.
So in your definition of objective, does it change with time period?
Does it change with time period?
Yeah, do objective morals change with the time periods?
Um, no, I don't think God changes, if that's what you're asking, because the objective moral that we're talking about is God, and God doesn't change.
Okay, so any moral God gave ever, it's good enough to be followed today.
Um, so I said God doesn't change, and like God is the moral standard, but like you have to tell me what you're talking about specifically, because I feel like this is going into like what's it called? Equivocation fallacy. It kind of goes into equivocation fallacy. So you need to give me an example because there's a lot of laws that he gave that was like more so case laws, right? And then people think that we should take the case laws and then apply them today. And that's he was speaking to a certain person at like a certain time, right?
Well, I can show you God saying that all his commandments are just. Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 40. Deuteronomy 12:1.
So he's talking to Israel specifically, right? Because he's saying like the land that I'm about to give you, right? So God didn't give me land. He's talking to a certain people group right here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But also, God says His ways are perfectly just. He's perfectly moral, right?
Show me that verse.
Deuteronomy 32:4. Psalms 18:30.
So like he's not. So it's not God saying this. It's someone else like ascribing these things to God. Because you said God said that all His ways are like moral and just, but like it sounds like you're bringing up like what other people were saying about God. Not that I disagree, but like I'm trying to see like what your point is with that.
So as you guys see, she's doing this common apologetic tactic where she's special pleading the definition of good for God, where she's basically just making a cutout for anything that God does, so she doesn't have to deal with the fact that God is unjust. And that's, like I said, it's special pleading. Yeah, that if God is perfect, then necessarily all His commandments would be perfect, right?
Yeah, so like perfect meaning that it pertains to God. There's no definition of perfect outside of God.
I'm saying, like, if He tells you to do something, He wouldn't tell you to do something bad, right?
Well, yeah, if he tells me to do something, it's just God telling me to do something. And bad can only be ascribed to like a definition of where I'm doing something contrary to God. So if I'm doing something contrary to God, it's bad. But if God's telling me to do it and I'm doing it, it can only be defined as good.
Okay, so if God told you to unalive your neighbor, would that be good?
Yeah, it'd have no other definition to it because there's no definition of good or bad like God.
If God told you to go to an orphanage, unalive all the kids there, and then take their bodies and take them to something that will squish them all and turn them into baby paste and tells you to snack on it once each day. Is that good?
Yeah, there's no other definition that you can ascribe to it because there's no definition of good or bad like God.
Okay. So basically, anything is good under God.
Yep. There's no definition outside of good or bad, like outside of God.
Okay, so
There's just no definition.
you can just go around unaliving anyone, you can grape anyone, you can do anything you
That's not
want
what
as long as God tells you to.
you're completely changing your first question because you said like God is telling you to do these things, right? And like the thing is, what I've noticed is that you guys function specifically in extremes, right? And you have to bring up like hypotheticals to get kind of like a gotcha, right? These aren't like typical things that God like tells you to do. Like as a modern day Christian.
So
But
would it
yes, I hold to divine command theory, which is what you're going to ask me about for the next 42 minutes, I guess. But yes, there's no definition of good or bad outside of God, so it would be incoherent to say that God is telling you to do something bad.
Okay, so then you'd have to prove that God exists. So how can you prove to me that God exists in order for you to be saying
No,
that
because
there's no
you're not going to
definition
burden
of good or
shift.
bad outside of him?
No, because you're not going to burden shift. Your job is to convince me to leave Christianity. If you
Sure.
don't have evidence, if you don't have evidence that he does not exist, then you just have to leave the panel.
Sure, I got you. I got evidence that he doesn't exist because
Cool.
God is all knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we expect him to know human biology.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we go to Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 13 to 21, bring her
I
by
know this
sin.
verse. What if I just say that God's a big fat meanie, right? That doesn't mean he doesn't exist. You're just saying that you're saying you disagree with God, right? It's not making a claim about her biology, and he's not making a scientific claim that contradicted biology. You're saying you don't agree with that because a woman can open up other ways outside of sex, right? But I can just rebuttal and say, well, God's a big fat meanie. That doesn't mean he doesn't exist.
Hold on. Let me finish my point. I just like to finish reading this first before I get into it, though, so the
Does it
like
have a
everybody can see.
positive claim about a biology, like biology, like you were trying to lead me to believe, or is this some like moral claim that you have against God again?
I'm trying to show that God gets biology wrong.
Okay, so it does have a positive claim about her biology. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, where?
When it says, saying, and now he has made up charges against her, saying, I did not find evidence of your daughter's virginity, but here is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. Then they shall spread out the cloth before the elders of the town. And what do you think they were expecting to be on that cloth?
I know what the verse is. That's not a positive claim about her biology.
And then it says, if, however, the charge is true, that evidence of the young woman's virginity was not found, then they shall bring the young woman out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of her town shall stone her to death because she committed a disgraceful act in Israel. So, if she doesn't bleed on this cloth, then she gets killed, right?
Right, you're making a moral ought claim. You're not saying that God said something that was contrary to biology. That's what you
Hold on.
started with.
Can you
No,
not put
no,
words in my
because
mouth?
this isn't what you started with. You started with saying that God knows everything, therefore he should know someone's biology, right? So it's not that he made like a claim against someone's biology that we know, like in science, to not be true. You're trying to make another moral ought claim about God. You're saying that I don't think that it was moral of God to do this, right?
Well, this
That's what
isn't a
you're
moral
saying.
claim. I'm saying, is it true that all women bleed when they lose their virginity?
Yeah. Do you know what a case law is?
Hold on. Is it true that all women bleed when they lose their
No, because it
virginity?
sounds like you don't understand what a case law is. A case law is not the same law that we function in America, where I see you do something wrong, I see you jaywalk, and I can just take you to jail under that judgment. Case laws were God giving you examples of ways that you can handle a situation, right? It's not saying that you have to ascribe or like hold to this law to the T, right? It's saying here's an example of a situation and here's how you can fix it. And then they would go about that way, right? So it could logically be that there's other ways, and like they also would have that in mind that hey, there's like possibilities that she opened up because she was riding a horse or a donkey or a camel and stuff like that. It could be a logical possibility that's how these people function. But he's saying, hey, you have this complication about figuring out how to enact justice. A surefire way to prove her innocence or prove her non-innocence is to show that she bled on her wedding night, right? That's a good way to do it. It's not him saying that that's the only way to do it, like you're saying.
Where else in the Bible does he give a way to check a woman's virginity?
But you're not leveling with what I'm saying. You're saying because he said it there, that all of a sudden that means that he's saying that's the only way to figure it out. He's saying here's a way to figure it out. That's not the same thing as this is the way to figure it out. If it doesn't happen, unalive her. That's not what a case law does. That's not how it operates.
Well, are you getting this from the Bible, or are you just taking this from extra biblical theological stuff? Because if we read the Bible, I
Yeah, if
don't
you read
know.
the Bible, you're reading a historical text that requires like historical like research to it. So yeah, I would use historical research to come to these conclusions.
I
And
agree.
historians will tell you that this is a case law, that they do not operate the same way that American laws would operate.
I agree that we should look at the history. So when we look at the history of the ancient Near East and these Bronze Age people, they obviously didn't know much about women's biology. They didn't even know that the earth was a globe. They thought the earth was flat. They thought women were property. They didn't know that not all women bleed when they lose their virginity. So that actually helps my point because
You
this,
have proof. You have proof that they honestly all thought that no woman like ever opened up any other way. You actually think that's what they thought?
yeah, that's what most people thought during the time. They figured it
Yeah,
out.
show me evidence of that, and then we can go from there.
This is the AI overview. It says, in much of the ancient Near East, there was a strong cultural idea that during a woman's first sexual experience, she was expected to bleed. This belief connected physical evidence, blood on a wedding night cloth, to a demonstration of a
Most,
woman's virginity, honor, and evidence.
most,
You said what?
most, most,
Most what?
most women. Not that they believed all women. Most women.
Okay. Yeah, my point still stands though that they
So
believe
no,
that.
no. Your point was that they believed all women did that. Their belief was that most women did that, not all.
Okay, so where does it say that in the Bible?
We just what? Like the Bible's not making a claim that all women do that either. But
It
your
is,
claim was
because if
that
she doesn't do that, she dies.
your claim was that they believed all of the women did that. But it doesn't say that. It says most women did that. And it's relatively true that most women do that, right? But
No.
nowhere in the Bible does it say all women do that. Nowhere does it say that. You just added that yourself.
It says if a woman does not bleed, she will die. I think that's
It
heavily
doesn't.
implying that if most women bleed, because
No,
if,
because then you didn't listen to
oh
me
my
about the
God,
case law, right? That's not him saying that all women do it. You're just trying to add that implementation into it. That is a case law saying here's a surefire way to figure out how to enact justice. A surefire way, like we understand that most women bleed, so here's a surefire way. Show them the blood. That's how you solve this case. The
but that
mystery solved, right? That's not him saying all women do that. That is not the same thing that's not what he's saying.
that's the thing though. Not most women bleed. Do you know how many women bleed when they lose their virginity?
Yeah, it's not making any positive claims in the text like you're saying though.
It is though, because what is the punishment if she does not bleed?
Yeah, the punishment in the case law where he's giving an example of how you would find evidence or how you would prove innocence, right? That would be the punishment. Again, a case law is not enacted the same way American laws are enacted. It's just giving you an example of how you would solve a case. It's
Okay,
just saying
so
use context clues.
so where are some other examples then? Because you keep saying it's a case law, just an example. So if it was just an example, then we should have other examples of how to check for virginity. So where's
Yeah,
some other?
that's a thing called a thing like an argument from science. Silence, sorry. You're saying because I don't see it any other way, that must mean that he's making the blanket statement that all women bled, right? And therefore this is the only way. But it's just giving an example, right? He doesn't have to provide other examples for this statement to be true.
Okay, whatever you say. I guess that's my argument because like I said, you even say unaliving people is right according to God and stuff like that. So I don't know how to convince someone that unaliving and that not all women
That's
bleed
really
is
nice. That's
wrong.
really nice poisoning the well, right? And I gave you like logical breakdown of how it's like incoherent to say something is good or bad, not God, right? And then you guys just kind of revert to this rhetoric like, well, you think unaliving kids are okay, and you think raping is just great, and it's just annoying rhetoric. You guys don't even like think about what you're saying before you say it. Anyways, I'm gonna move on. Thank you so much for your
Yep.
time. Anyways, I'm gonna move on. Thank you so much for your time. It's always so annoying, right? They only operate in extremes, and you can explain it to them as much as you want to. There is no such thing as something that is good or bad outside of law, outside of God, right? Oh, so raping is okay. Like you navigated to like the worst possible extreme, and then you're trying to condemn us for it. Such an honest conversation, so honest. Hi there, Benjamin. Can I have your age for TikTok?
Hello,
Hi, how old are you?
I am 19 years old.
Okay, did you want to respond to the prompt?
Prompt. So I just have one question. So I'm struggling with belief. I grew up in a household with Christian parents, but my only problem is that there is no proof of Christianity. So how can I believe it?
I think that you can believe it like going through like the data points that we have of like the historical reportage model. I can give you like a few things that you can look up, like the historic reportage model, and then you can read the book by Craig Keener, and it lists out 86 miracles and stuff like that. And then I'm sorry, no camera on the live. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
And then you can look at the data points that's given, and then you can come to the conclusions of God, right? I can't sit here and like convince you of it. You would have to do the digging and then seek out a personal relationship with God.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem because God made us, God knows how we function and how we think. So why does he think that we should believe it? Because people just believe things that there's evidence for. So why should I believe something there is no big and good evidence for it?
Okay, I would recommend that you go to like your pastor or like an official like church member that can like help
Yeah.
you walk through these things, because this is kind of like not what the prompt is.
Okay,
For
I'm
that.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
But
Anything else?
no, there's not. I wish you a good day and a good argument.
All right, have a good one. No, I'm not going to spend my life convincing other people when my theme here is to convince me to leave Christianity. If you have questions about Christianity, like true authentic questions, and you're not doing it just like as gotchas, then you just go to your pastor or you do the research enveloped into it. So I gave him 2 resources that he can look through if he's generally worried about his salvation and stuff like that. He can look through that and come to the conclusion of God. Oh my goodness.
Hello.
Hi, how old are you?
Hi, I'm
Too many
19.
people up.
Oh,
Sorry, 1 second.
Sorry.
One person at a time. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm 19. And so I know you mentioned this earlier, but I just want to say, like, I want to ask a question, but it's like not just a question. Hold on. So basically, so you are Christian currently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're Christian and you believe in God and you think he loves you, do you believe that he loves everybody who follows him?
That he loves everyone that follows him? Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to know, if he really does, then why does he let innocent children get murdered, raped,
Can't say
and
that
die
word.
of cancer?
You can't say that word. You have to say schmurdered.
Sorry. But yeah. That's like a point that I would think of if I was trying to leave a religion, of why he lets that happen to innocent people.
Yeah, I think that people hear the word all loving and they just kind of come to their own assumption of like how that's like enacted with people. But the premise of it is that God is all loving, and he is so loving that he's allowed you to live in your free will. However, there's consequences to ill free will. when you don't do what you're supposed to do with like your free will, and there's just natural horrific consequences to that. And if you took that structure out, right, you wouldn't learn lessons anymore. You would be stagnant, and you would be inclined to just keep acting that way.
So wait, are you saying that because he gave us free will, that the parents didn't make the right decision, so that reflects on the children?
Right. I didn't say like a specific people group, but it could be like anyone around the
I know, I'm
children.
just
Yep, so as I said, her worldview includes that anything is good under God, even unaliving children, unaliving whoever graping, you know. So like I said, put her on the watch list or something, because these are exactly the type of people who you see on the news all the time that end up going to jail because they unalived their child and unalived their whole family because they thought God was speaking to them. So yeah, that type of mindset is dangerous.